Good morning. My name is Karen Kong, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. And welcome to my This or That Thursday. Although this week it's this and that because I decided to show you a monochromatic Zinnia card set that I cased from Wendy Lee. So I take no credit for the design because I actually copied Wendy Lee's design. It's beautiful and I was inspired to just recreate it. And then I tried a couple of different things with it. And I'll show you the end results of some of the things I played around with at the end. But if you are joining in for the first time, normally I have two cards that I post to my Facebook page, and I ask people to choose. But because this time I'm making 4 cards out of the one layout, I thought I'd just stick with that. Plus, I'm just coming back from dance comps, and I just didn't have the energy and the time to make another card. So anyways, if you're joining in live, please say hi and tell me where you're watching from. I always like to have company when I'm crafting and people to talk with because it's really boring just talking to myself. So please say hi and tell me where you're watching from, and even if you're watching the replay, I would love to hear from you. Okay, so let me just switch over to my desktop. Oh wait, I gotta switch over set up my computer so that I can see all your comments. Okay, so let me just set that up and then I will switch over the view to my desktop. All right. There we go. Okay, my desktop is set up and I will switch over. So just close your eyes while I mount my phone. Here we go. And I'll just zoom in a bit. All right. Huh. It seems off center. That's so weird. Like, you know, I set it up. I have not moved my stand in ages, and I set up my grid paper here to always be in the center, but somehow this week it has changed. I don't know what's going on. So I'm gonna have to zoom out a little bit because it's not, and I've already taped this down, so I don't really want to move it. Okay, well, it is what it is. This is reality crafting. Mistakes happen, life happens, Facebook happens, tech problems happen. So we will continue. Okay, so this card, if you want to take a look, is a gorgeous combination of 4 colors. So one is Bubble Bath, that is Fresh Freesia, this is Petunia Pop, which is a new in color for this year, and this is Berry Burst, and the center is Daffodil Delight and Lemon Lolly. So, and then everything else is white. It's just such a clean card. It's really striking. And when you make this card, because you're cutting 4 different colors for the petals of the flower, you'll end up with 4 sets. So then you can make 4 cards and make a little note card set that you can keep for yourself or give it away as a gift. I also, okay, so this sentiment is from the Simply Zinnia set, and she simply masked the sending flowers and part of the sentiment and just used thinking of you. But I also went ahead and I tried it with different sentiments on my other cards. So I will show you that at the end, and we will get started with this card. So this one I added a little bit of stamping inside. So it opens like this. Okay, and you can notice, if you notice, there's embossing on the inside because Wendy Lee had embossed the entire card base front rather than adding it as a mat. So you get to see the embossing on the inside. So that embossing folder is from the Basics 3D embossing folder set. Okay, so if you're joining me for the first time, don't worry, I will post all the measurements and the supplies afterwards in my video description. So you can always just enjoy watching and then find all the measurements in the description. Good morning, Sandra. Hi, Tara. Nice to see you. I hope you can stay for a little while longer. I know you've been busy with meetings and stuff. Yeah, it's nice to be back. It's been a while because of all this dance competition stuff. Things were just so crazy, but I did manage to do my cards this week, although I didn't make 2 different ones. This makes a set of 4, so it's really, you're going to see a way to make 4 cards out of this, kind of like the stack and shuffle, I think. So let me make some room and let's get started. I did pre-cut a few things to help this go a little bit faster. I'm going to bring this over and we will cut our card base first. Oh yeah, I love this embossing folder. It's a subtle kind of pattern and it's neutral, and I actually first got it because it went with the ice cream cone set. I thought it looked like the hash pattern from the cones, so I thought it was a really nice set to have. Okay, so I'm going to cut my card base. I need white, and it's going to be cut lengthwise this time because this card opens from the top, right? So I'm going to take an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I'm going to cut it at 4 1/4 on the short side. And I'm going to score it on the long side at 5.5 inches. Okay, now I need a few more pieces of white to go with this. So the mat here is, let me just see, 3.5 by 4 3/4. So let me take this sheet. So I need 4 3/4 length. So I'll have to cut it this way, 4 3/4. And 3.5. Yes, the color coach, and you know, you can Google all sorts of Stampin' Up! Color combinations to make different sets of note cards with this color. Sorry, with this layout, and vary your color combinations. That would be a great way to change it up. Okay, so, oh, and I need a square piece here, which is 2.5 by 2.5. So let's grab this piece, the leftover piece again. So I need a 2.5 by 2.5. Okay, and each of these little squares here are 1 1/8 by 1 1/8. So I already cut the strips into 1 1/8 width. I just need to make cut little squares from them. So I'm going to do them 2 at a time because I think the blade, my blade is very new, so should be able to cut through 2 sheets no problem, and that'll save us a little time. So let's just make sure that I'm measuring to 1 1/8. I'm using this side actually to measure. Okay, 1 1/8. So I'm going to need 4 of them because I have 4 sets of cards. So 1, 2, 3, and I think this last one here is already 1 1/8. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's, yeah, that's already 1 1/8. So I just need this one last piece here. Okay, so I have those cut, and I'll just bring in the Petunia Pop and Berry Burst. So Petunia Pop I thought was close to Berry Burst, but when you look at them together, clearly they are not. It's actually closer to like the Fresh Freesia. It's like a darker version of Fresh Freesia, but yeah, it's hard to know exactly what the colors look like when you look at them and you don't have a comparison like right up against them in the book or online. But definitely Petunia Pop is a different shade altogether. Okay. So it's been so busy and the weather has been kind of up and down. We've like had some days where it's like wet snow and then it would be beautiful and sunny and warm like a day later. I have not even cleared out the winter boots in my front hallway. That's on my list to do this weekend. Sorry, these have become off-centered. Okay, so let's move this over, 1 1/8. And I still need to clean up all the winter coats and stuff. So I cannot believe it's the May long weekend already, and it feels like summer is like just around the corner. We just bought a few plants last night to plant in the garden. Garden work is gonna have to get going on that. All right, so now I have all the squares that I need. Okay, so now I need to cut my flowers. All right, so I need 4 flowers. So I need 1 of each color, of course. And I also went ahead. So what Wendy Lee did was that she actually used foam adhesive to raise up the flower. So I don't know if you can see this, but the flower is raised from the paper. And she used a foam backing, so sort of like a dimensional, but it's a full sheet of foam. So she cut her flower from the foam so that she could adhere each of these petals to the foam. But I don't have any of that. I don't have a full sheet. So what I decided to do was I was going to just die cut 3 white versions of the flower, and I would stack them and glue them together and then put my final color on top. So that's what I did to raise them up without the foam sheets. So I went ahead and did that already because I do have to cut 4 of these for the top. Okay, so let's put this aside. I'm going to put these on the side so that I can bring over my cut and emboss. And I think we'll need to emboss too. So let's just take our 4 pieces. So I pre-cut 2 by 2.25 inch pieces of the same set of colors in cardstock. This was like a scrap piece that I had stamped by accident, and I think I can just fit the flower on. Oh yes, Tara, I'm sure you've been many times. Lucky you, you have somebody to help lift and carry and bring all the flowers into the car and unload, I'm sure, at the end. You have a beautiful garden. Okay, so let's run this through. I am not personally a big fan of gardening. I leave that primarily to my husband. Not that he's a huge fan of gardening, but he's more willing to do it than I am. I would rather trade in for vacuuming than weeding, and I mean, I used to do all that gardening stuff, but not anymore. Not since my husband and now my son and my daughter can help him out. I am more happy to stay indoors and do the indoor work. Okay, so if you wanted to, so my plan is somehow to use the negative, the cutouts of these in another layout somehow. Not this particular piece, of course, because I've got stamping on it from before, but I did save the negative die cut from my other project, like from when I created this one. And If you wanted to line it up so that your flowers are in the exact same spot, so that all four of your remainder die cuts, the negatives, are in the same spot, you can use this as a template to place your die. Okay, so that's what I did with my other ones. I'm not going to do it for this one because I know I'm not going to use this particular piece, but you can do that. And you know what? Let's just see. See, I have saved all these die cut pieces. There is one I'm missing. I'm missing fresh Freesia, I think. Oh, and that was the one that I didn't, that I'm not planning on keeping. Okay, whatever. But if you wanted to keep the negatives and make something else from it, and you want the die cut in the exact same spot, use your first one as your template to help you place your die. Oh, you have lots of maple keys, like little mini maples growing, eh? That's hopefully isn't too much of a hard job to pull them out if they're still young and not like deeply rooted. I can imagine it must be a lot of work. Okay, that's two. And oh, this one is just big enough. I think this is a scrap from a previous piece, and it's not much room to play with there. So once we're done cutting all these pieces, we're going to stack these and then we're going to cut it. So Wendy had actually cut them one at a time and used her first one as a guide to mark and then cut. So I thought it would be faster if I just cut all four at once if I stack them together. It doesn't, sometimes they move a bit when you cut because they are stacked, but it doesn't really matter because you're going to cover up the middle, right? So if these center parts aren't, you know, they don't match up exactly when you go to assemble them, it's okay because the middle part's going to be covered up anyways. So that's how I'm going to save some time. Okay, so now we have 4 flowers, and then I'm just going to, while I have my die cutting machine here, I'm going to go ahead and emboss the card base as well. So I'm reproducing Wendy's card first, and then I'll show you some variations. Alright, so now that, because I need my embossing folder, this is a 3D embossing folder, I need to remove all these plates. And I'm going to get my card base, dig it out from underneath all this, my die cuts. Okay, so I'm going to just fold it and I'm going to burnish that fold first because I found that after I put it through, for some reason, like it becomes very flattened. I don't know how to explain it. Like it didn't lie, my other cards didn't lie quite as flat as I would like after I ran it through, and I don't know if I'm going to have the same problem. I'm just going to make sure that this is burnished well before I put it through the embossing machine. Because once it's gone through, I don't really want to be pressing hard on the embossed area here because then I'll end up flattening it. So I'm just going to make sure that it's burnished well. Okay, so because this is a non-directional folder, it doesn't matter that I'm putting it in essentially upside down, but I had used a directional folder for one of them, and for that one I ended up I needed to use a matte instead of embossing the card base directly, otherwise it would have been upside down. So I guess I'm going to put it right up to the fold line here. And I need to put it in this way. Looks a little bit crooked for some reason. Let's straighten that out. Okay. I need the number 4 plate, and I'm going to run it through with that. Okay. So I'm only embossing just the front section of my card base. All right, so there you can see it's directly embossed onto the mat of the front of the card base. Okay, so let's move this out of the way. I think we're done with that. I already went ahead and I die cut the middle sections of my flowers so that we wouldn't spend too much time with the cut and emboss machine. All right, so now the next part is to, you know what? I was going to cut the flowers into 4 sections, but I want to leave space to do that. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get my little pieces here sorted out first and glued on so that they're not in my way. So I need one of each color. And I just realized as I'm saying this that I can't glue them onto the papers yet. And I'll show you why. I'm just going to find all 4 pieces. Here we go. Okay, there's 4, one of each color. All right, so if you notice, I matched up the back piece to the petals on the flower. So I could go ahead actually and glue it on, and then I'll just have to match whichever set of flowers matches this background. But I'm a little hesitant to do that because I can just see that happening where I don't have the right order. So let's not glue them on just yet. All right. Okay, so, oh yeah, Tara's saying she did that recently. I'm assuming that you're talking about embossing the card base itself. It's nice because then on the inside you can see the embossing, right? Okay, so let's set that aside and we will go ahead and set up our flower. So I'm going to have to match them up. So I'm just going to lay them out so that I can figure out what orientation I need. Nope, this way and this way. Okay, and you basically want to cut it into 4 sections. I'm going to use my card as an example as to where I want to cut it, and I'm going to just make sure that they're lined up really well before I start cutting. And hopefully what happens is when you start cutting, they start moving, they shift over, and I'm sure that you know what I mean because there's 4 layers, right? And your scissors are going to push them apart. Okay, so I'm going to orient it this way, just like my sample. Okay, so it's been cut here down to here. All right, so I don't want to cut my flower petals, and Wendy had done this with the paper trimmer so that she could get a nice straight cut, but again, I can't cut through 4 layers, and her method would require me having to use the first one as a guide to have to match it up, and I just find that I'm thinking this would save me all kinds of time trying to match things up. Okay, so I'm just going to cut straight across here. And you have to be careful not to cut the petal and not lose the order in which you laid these together. Okay, so I want this in the same order. Okay, let's put these aside since I still have this one together, and I need to cut halfway in between here. All right, so now those have exploded, and I'm gonna have to reassemble them so that I can do a cut, like a stack and shuffle sort of thing. Okay, so what colors did I have this in? Let's see, I have lilac, bubble bath, and berry burst, and then petunia. Okay, it doesn't matter which order you put them in. You just need to keep them in the same order. Okay, and then I'll just stack these up again, and I'm going to cut them across and split it in half. And again, like, it doesn't have to be super perfect because the middle's going to get covered up anyways. Okay. There. All right. So now you want to mix and match so that you have one of every color. Okay, so let's make a little bit of room. And I'm actually going to put them on my silicone mat. Put this over here. And I'm going to move it up so you can see. All right, here we go. All right. So it's kind of like a stack and shuffle technique, right? So I'm going to take, actually I should have left this off the paper and then I'll just add them onto the paper, onto the mat, I mean. Okay, so here's fresh freesia. I'm going to use my tweezers. My fingers are just too clumsy. Okay, one here, one here, one here. So we're assembling 4 different flowers, so I'm setting them up. So I'm going to go so I'm going to start with this one. Go over here, because this will go here. And then I'll put this one here. So I'm going clockwise and assembling them clockwise. Thank you, Sandra. Maybe I'm just a little bit crazy. I don't know. I didn't have a lot of options this week because I just didn't have the time and energy to create 2 different cards, and I really liked this particular layout, so I really wanted to give it a try, and I thought you would all appreciate it too because I thought it was an amazing idea and layout from Wendy, and makes a great set. Okay, so here, 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 and here. Okay, so those are the 4 flowers, all right? So those are your sets of 4, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my 3 white ones and I'm going to just glue them together, okay? So let's just make sure they're aligned correctly before I try to glue them together. Okay, so I'm just going to take this one. I'm just going to use glue, and I'm just going to use little dots of glue. So you don't need tons. I just put them up. Whoops, there it came out because it was upside. It came out a lot. I don't want to put too much, especially where the lines are, because then I find that the glue kind of squishes up between the lines. It doesn't matter with the first layer because you're going to cover it anyways with another one, but the top layer, when you put the color on, you don't really want a lot of glue squishing up between the lines there. And you don't need tons of glue, really. I just like to have it at the tips because then you know that they'll stick together, right? And you won't have the petals lifting. So I'm aiming mostly to put it on the sections that are not cut. All right. Yeah, you would need to find like another flower that works for this. I'm not sure. I can't think off of the top of my head what other flower sets would work for this. Okay, and I like to use my tweezers to kind of squeeze them together and line up all the petals. looks pretty good. And I'm going to do the same thing with the third layer. And I mean, like, you can add another 1 or 2 layers possibly to make it stand out even more from the card, but 3 is good for me. I think if you use the foam adhesive, it probably is closer to 4 or 5 in height to match it. I'm not sure, but I'm okay with using the paper. I know some people don't like doing this. It takes a little bit of patience to do all the little dots, but I actually find it kind of relaxing. It's not too bad. This is not too bad. Like the succulents die, that one was more time intensive and definitely not my favorite one to have to assemble, but it's worth the effort if you can do it. Okay. So again, I'm just going to use, I think it's pretty much lined up, but I use my tweezers to kind of squeeze the edges because you have a little play while the glue is still wet to just line them up. Okay. Oh yeah, snowflake, Tara, that's a good idea. Great ideas, ladies. All right. Pull this closer to center. All right, so I can just pick any flower now and just adhere it on. So I am actually going to put the glue right onto the white flower so that I just have to lay my colored one on top. So again, I'm going to just be very careful not to put too much glue close to the lines. So right now I'm going to work on the top right quadrant petals. Okay. So I'm just going to take this one and lay it right on top. Okay. I'm going to turn it because it's going to be easier for me to work with laying it down. So I'm going to put the next quarter of a petal or a flower actually on. So I'm only putting glue on the sections that I'm working with. Okay. You don't need tons of glue. It doesn't need a lot of glue. So, and like I said, if your middle does not line up exactly, it's not a big deal because you're going to cover it up anyways. Okay. You just need to make sure that the petals line up. Did I put any glue here? You know what? I think I missed putting glue on this petal. Reality crafting. I thought I had gotten everything, but I hadn't. But luckily this is forgiving enough that I could just lift it a little bit and put the glue underneath. Okay. All right, so I'm doing the bottom left corner now. Does anybody have any fun plans for the long weekend this weekend coming up? I think I am just so looking forward to sleeping in this weekend because I have gotten up early every day for the last 3 weeks, I think now, because of dance competitions and school and all that. So I would really like to have a chance to catch up on a little bit of sleep and not have to set the alarm. We're not going anywhere. The house is like a little bit of a disaster. I need to clean up all the dance stuff, all the regular stuff, and all the winter stuff. Oh my gosh, who's talking about Christmas already? No, we're only in May. We haven't even gotten halfway through the year. I'm not even thinking about Christmas yet. I want to play with the flowers. I have new sets that I'm just dying to open and play with. Haven't even had a chance. Okay, so this is the last quarter of my flower. Definitely need tweezers for this. I don't know if I could do this with just my fingers. It's so much easier. I use tweezers all the time. Makes it so much easier to line things up and to get my fingers out of the way when I want to see where I want to place something. And that's it. So there is one flower done. So I would do the exact same thing for the rest of the flowers. I'm going to keep them in the same order. Leave this layout and I will come back to it, and hopefully nobody sneezes on my layout. And I need my center now to finish it off. Okay, so this is the center of the dahlia. Actually, I'm going to put the glue right on the flower itself, because I know it covers up the entire center of it. And this way I know that I won't have any glue oozing out into sections where there's no flower. Okay. Now I noticed for this part of my flower, only the inside edges of this die cut touch. So I'm really just going to focus putting on glue dots on the center parts of it. Oh, I'm looking at Sandra's comments talking about how many dance costumes she has. Yeah, there are dance costumes hanging up behind me. I opened up our dance bag and just took out the rack and hung everything up there to air out, and I have to do washing next and tidy it all up, put things away. That's next too. And you know, I'm looking forward to the weekend, and at the same time I know how much work I have to do, so I'm like torn. It's like I want this weekend, but I don't want this weekend. Hopefully we'll get a chance to I just really want to sit down and watch a movie and not think. It's a very unexciting long weekend plan, but that's all I can do after week of dance competitions. All right, so there's my flower. Yay. Okay, so now we can assemble our square. Okay, so let's move this off. I need this as my guide. I'm going to move my silicone mat with all my laid out flowers for the next round of crafting. Okay, so let's bring this over. All right, so I don't know if you've ever seen me do this. You might have, but I like to just kind of flatten the edges of anything that I've cut with my paper trimmer, because I find that there's a little raised lip that's happening, and I know I'm a perfectionist and I prefer to have it flat. It looks cleaner to me and more finished. There's some kind of black dot there. I don't know what that is. Maybe I'll use this other side. Okay. So yeah, so what I do is I just take my bone folder and I just run it over the edge and make sure it's flat. Even for these pieces, sometimes I notice there's like a raised edge, and it just looks more finished when they're all flat. It's just an extra level of detail that, you know, you may or may not want to do. It's just something I like to do. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to want to match up. Oh my God, 18 costumes, Sandra? Where do you have room to hang 18 costumes? Wow. Okay, so I want my flower to be this way up in this orientation. So for this particular combination of petals, I'm going to want this one. This is my Berry Burst. Petunia Pop is in the top right. Fresh Freesia. I've got 2 bubble baths. I need a fresh Freesia. This is fresh Freesia. Right. Okay. Just a second. Okay, so Fresh Freeze is in the bottom right and Bubble Bath is in the bottom left. Okay, so I'm going to want to adhere these, and I'm actually going to lay them out first. I'm going to make sure that the spacing is right, because once I lay down that first square, it sets the position for all the other ones. And I don't want to have it uneven right from the get-go, because it's, I don't know about you, but it just bugs me. It is handmade, and I know that it doesn't have to be perfect, but this is just me. I do like to lay it out so I have, you know, a good chance of having it lined up and spaced out properly. Okay, so I'm going to use, well, I guess I'll pick this one, Petunia Pop, and I'm going to use that one as my guide. I'm using glue because that gives me a little bit of time to wiggle it around and align it as I want. And I always make sure I leave space around the edge. I don't use gobs of glue because then it's going to squish out, and I don't want that happening. All right, so now that my first one is laid, I can use it as the guide for the rest of my pieces. So I'm going to go ahead. Okay, so don't put glue too close to the edge. It won't leak out, and it also gives you room to play with placement, because if you need to move it over just a little bit, you won't have glue showing from the place where it used to be sitting, because it'll still be hidden underneath your cardstock. So there we go. And one more to go. All right. Whoops. Moved it a little bit. Let's move that back. Okay. That looks pretty good. All right. So now I could put this on top, but I like to be able to press this down afterwards when I'm putting it on the card base. So what I'm going to do is assemble now. Actually, you know what I'm going to do first? I keep lying to you. I think I'm going to assemble, but I'm not. Okay, so I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to put this right here. I'm going to lay it out where it's supposed to go approximately, but I'm not going to adhere it because I'm going to stamp. And if that stamp does not work out, then I'm not committed to using it because I've already laid and adhered my squares. So if it doesn't work out, I can just get a fresh piece or turn this over and do it again. Sandra's asking, do you think you could use washi tape or Post-it to hold things in place when lining things up? Yeah, you could, absolutely. I'm just a little bit lazy about doing that. I mean, I know I can do it without using the washi tape, but absolutely. I mean, if you wanted to use washi tape or a Post-it note to hold your things in place, that is a great idea. You could definitely do that. Okay, so I am using this sentiment, sending flowers and thinking of you. Okay, and let's get a little bit of Post-it note or a piece of tape. Let's see if this one's still sticky enough. I think it's sticky enough. Okay, so I just need to cover up the words that I don't want, but I am going to aim to not ink up that section. Hang on a sec. I need a longer block. Just a second. Okay, here we go. So I am just going to ink up this part, which says thinking of you. All right. And I'm going to get the Blackberry Bliss out because it matches, but you could use black. It doesn't matter what, if you don't want or don't have a matching color, but I think it looks really nice having the matching Blackberry Bliss. Okay, so I'm just going to aim to ink just this part up. That looks pretty good. Okay, so the key thing is to remove the post-it note before you stamp. I have left this post-it note on before. I made a big blob and it totally defeated the purpose of having a post-it note to mask out the letters I didn't want. Anyways, so remember to remove the post-it note. Okay, so now I'm just going to line this up. Actually, you know what? I think this is fairly straight, but in any case, I am going to line it up here and just stamp. Perfect. That worked out really well. All right. I'm just cleaning off my stamp now with the chamois so that I don't accidentally ink anything else. All right, so now that this is stamped properly and I'm happy with it, I will go ahead and I will start adhering and assembling things. Okay, so let's take our card base and I'm going to use glue. Okay, and this is just a tip that I like to just balance on one edge while I center my cardstock, and the glue isn't touching the card base, so if it's not in the right spot I still have time to readjust. And now I'm just going to grab the right edge and gently lay it down, and I'm just kind of keeping an eye on where it is and it looks centered, and I think that's probably fine, and then I'll press it down. Okay, so let's make sure that we are putting our flower and our colors in the right orientation. Okay. Oh, actually, you know what? I am going to use dimensionals for this. I'm going to pop this up on dimensionals. And I'll put one in the center. And I always leave my paper on the table so that I don't end up bending it by accident while I'm trying to rip off the backings. All right, so again, I'm making sure my orientation is correct before I put this down. I'm going to use my tweezers. It's easier to hold it and position it without my fingers in a way. Oh, you know what? I want to line it up with the thinking of you a little bit better. Okay, I'm happy with that. All right, so that is now adhered, and I'm going to put glue on the back of this. You could use glue dots, you could use glue. I don't think it matters. And this time it doesn't matter if the glue is over the lines because it's just going to be covered up by all the layers of paper of the other petals. You just don't want to get too close to the edge because you don't want the glue to squish out from underneath. But just use tiny dots of glue. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to line it up so that each of these colors are in its own little quadrant. Some of them are going to overlap, and of course the center has to go in the center. I think that looks good. And there is the card. Look at that. Now the inside was really easy. I just took another mat and I've stamped in Bubble Bath. Let me just quickly do that. I don't usually finish the insides of my cards, but let's do it for this one. And let me get the scrap piece of paper because I'm stamping off of the edge of it. Let's get some Bubble Bath out. And the Zinnia flower needs to be mounted. Just make sure you get your finger underneath the sticker label so you don't pull it off the foam. Okay, and this is full strength. I found that if I stamped off first and tried to get a lighter version of Bubble Bath, it was just so light. Bubble Bath is too light when you stamp it off, so I just use it full strength. There we go. Okay, so let's just put a little bit of glue on and we will stick that in and the card will be done. And then I'll show you my other variations. Again, I'm just lining it up on the left top and bottom before I actually lay it down. Perfect. All right. So there is the original card as cased from Wendy Lee. All right. Here's my variations. Hang on a sec. So I made one with the time-worn type embossing. I don't know if you can see it, but the time-worn type has some kind of like, it looks like words, but they're not really words. They're, I don't know, parts of words, and they are directional, of course. So rather than embossing directly onto the card base, I actually had to take another mat the size of my card front and emboss it and adhere it. So this is actually an extra layer on top of this card because I could not do it directly onto the card base without it being upside down. I used the Thinking of You from the, I know Sandra and Tara are going to recognize this one, from the On the Horizon set. Where did it go? Here we go. So this set. So I found it to be the right size and it was one line, so I used that one. And my last variation is with the Zinnia embossing folder. So with the Zinnia embossing folder, because it's not directional, I did do it straight onto the card base, right? So I think it looks nice too. And then this also comes from the On the Horizon set, right? So I use Breathe. I just wanted small words. I didn't want something really big down here, so those are the ones I chose. And I think they worked well for different, you know, different occasions, right? You want to send it for a sympathy, it would be Thinking of You. I could have used thanks. There's many sets that have thanks and just put that right there. Yeah, so this will make a great set to give away, I think. I'm going to finish off my the rest of those cards. So now I have a set, one set of I have a full set of 4, and then I will make another set of 4 with the remaining pieces. So I think it's a really great set, and I would love to play with the color combinations, because you could choose another 4 color combination to make the flower, and I think it would still look fantastic. It's a really clean card. So thank you to Wendy Lee for coming up with this layout, and I'm not taking any credit for this layout. Short one that fits just on the right side. So it's all personal preference. It's whatever you think looks great, and I'm sure it'll turn out. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you guys have some time to craft this week. Maybe on the long weekend you'll have a little bit of time for yourself, and I will see you next week. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.